Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the CERC's Third Amendment to the Connectivity and GNA regulations. This was just notified on August 31st, and let me tell you, this is not just some minor tweak. It's a massive recalibration of risk and reward for everyone in the Indian power sector. You know, the Commission has really created a classic double-edged sword with this one. On the one hand, they're rolling out some major new operational flexibilities, which is great news for developers. But on the other hand, they're pairing it with some of the toughest compliance rules and penalties we've ever seen. It's a real balancing act. So to really get our heads around all this, we've broken it down into 5 key parts. We'll kick things off with the good stuff, solar hours and the new flexibility. Then we'll get into the really serious business, the shareholding lock-in rule and the new financial penalty matrix. After that, we'll look at what's new for land, parks, and bays, and we'll wrap up with the most urgent part, the immediate actions you need to take. Let's start with the opportunities. Okay, let's dive right in. The biggest carrot the CERC is offering in this amendment is, without a doubt, the new solar hour framework. What they're trying to do here is pretty smart, actually. They want to squeeze every last drop of efficiency out of our current transmission grid, basically make the same set of wires work twice as hard. So for the first time, the regs give us a formal definition of solar hours. It's pretty straightforward. They're just the peak sunshine periods. The NLDC is going to declare these time blocks every week for each state. Now, that might sound like just a small definition, but trust me, it's the key that unlocks a really powerful new way of sharing the grid. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is the big idea from Regulation 5.11. Picture this. A solar project has its dedicated solar hour access to inject power all day. But at night, when that solar project is dormant, that very same transmission line can now be given to a totally different wind farm or a battery storage system. It's brilliant, right? You're essentially doubling the capacity of that asset without laying a single new kilometer of cable. Okay, but this brings up a huge question for developers, doesn't it? What if you're a solar plant that wants to charge your battery at night, or a wind farm that wants to sell some power during the day? Are you just out of luck? Are you totally locked out of those other hours? Nope, not at all. And this is where you see how thoughtful they've been about flexibility. Check out Regulation 26.1e. That solar plant can apply for what's called T-GNA, that's temporary GNA, to get access during those off hours as long as there's room on the grid. And there's more good news. You can now even swap your technology, say from solar to wind after your application. Plus, and this one is huge, there's a new safety valve. If the grid upgrades your project needs get rejected, you're not left holding the bag. Your application is closed and you get all your bank guarantees back, no penalty. That's a massive de-risking tool for developers. Okay, so that's the carrot. Now, let's talk about the stick. We have to look at the other side of this coin, and the biggest, most impactful change is the new shareholding lock-in rule and Regulation 11A6. And believe me, this changes everything when it comes to financing and selling projects. I really can't overstate this. If you're an investor, a promoter, a lawyer, anyone who touches the financial side of a project, you need to listen up. This is, without a doubt, the single most important and highest risk change in this entire amendment. Seriously. So what makes this so tough is the duration of the lock-in. It's not from when you get your money or sign the power purchase agreement. No, this rule says the original promoters have to keep control of the project from the very first day you submit the application. And that lock-in continues all the way through until you hit the commercial operation date, or COD. And the wording in the regulation is crystal clear. It basically freezes your company's ownership structure in place. Thinking about selling a stake, bringing in a new majority partner before you're commercially operational? Forget it. Any change of control is now a major violation, unless you somehow get the nodal agency to approve it beforehand. It's pretty obvious what they're trying to do here. They want to stop people from just flipping applications without ever intending to build the project. Now, what happens if you break this rule? It's not just a slap on the wrist or a financial penalty, it's a kill switch. The first thing that happens is your connectivity grant is gone. Poof, revoked. And if that wasn't bad enough, the second shoe drops immediately. They will encash 100% of every single bank guarantee you've submitted, Con BG 1, 2, and 3. All of it. It is a total financial wipeout. So the message here couldn't be clearer. You better have your ownership structure and your long-term partners figured out from day one, because once you apply, you are locked in tight. Okay, so on top of that massive lock-in rule, The amendment also lays out a very clear, very strict waterfall of penalties if you decide to pull your application. This is all detailed in Regulation 3.7. As you can see, the later you pull out, the more it's going to hurt your wallet. If you withdraw before you even get the in-principle grant, you lose half your application fee. Okay, not great, but manageable. But after that, the pain really ramps up. And look at that last row. If you withdraw after the final grant, you lose everything. The full fee, 15% of your bank guarantee, plus they encash the entire first connectivity BG. The CERC is sending a very loud message. Don't clog up the system with applications you're not serious about. All right, so we've talked about the financial side. Now let's look at how these new rules affect the physical stuff on the ground. We're talking land, power parks, and substation bays. There's some new constraints here, but also a few new strategic doors opening up. There are 3 really practical changes here you need to know. First, the land swap. You can now do a one-time swap if your site runs into problems, which is nice, but there's a catch. You have to keep at least half of your original land. Second, for those huge power parks over 500 megawatts, your first application now has to be for at least 300 megawatts. That's a big deal for how you plan your project phases. And third, there's this new bay reallocation rule. It's a bit of a gamble, really. The nodal agency can move you to a different bay to optimize space. You might get lucky and get an earlier slot, or you might not. Okay, and this brings us to the final and honestly the most urgent section. Let's talk about the transition rules. If you have any project currently in the works, this is your immediate do-it-right-now checklist. Regulation 37.10 lays out 2 absolutely critical, time-sensitive tasks. First, for anyone with a pending application that hasn't gotten its in-principle grant yet, you've got 1 month. 1 month to get it updated and compliant with all these new amendments. But there's a second deadline that's even tighter and, frankly, more dangerous. And this is it. This is the big one. If you have any existing project that hasn't hit COD yet, you have just 2 weeks, 14 days, from the date this was notified to submit your full promoter and shareholding details. They need this to set the starting point for that lock-in rule we talked about. And I want to be absolutely clear. If you miss this 14-day deadline, your connectivity grant is automatically revoked. No second chances. So, let's just pull this all together. As we said at the start, this amendment is truly a double-edged sword. It opens up some amazing new doors for making the grid more efficient and making hybrid projects more viable. But at the exact same time, it demands a whole new level of discipline. You have to be buttoned up and strategically aligned from the very first day, especially on your corporate and financial structure. So that really leaves everyone, developers, investors, lawyers, with one critical question you have to answer. And you don't have a lot of time. Is your portfolio set up to take advantage of all this new flexibility, or is it dangerously exposed to these incredibly tough new risks? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.